Rather, you do the honors.
If you insist, Sachin. Okay, I know we are running terribly behind schedule, but we had thought of adding something new this year at Design Dialogues, which is called the Rapid Fire Round. So I'd like to invite a few architects and designers who are sitting here. Supraja Rao, can you please join us? Salil Ranadeve, Nitin Kilawala, Mr. Milind Nulkar, please come on stage. Anand Tatu, Bonnie Concesao. So Salil had asked me whether rapid fire rounds or something like Karan Johar coming here. We've still not started film awards and events as of now. Yeah. Yeah, so you thought that would be there?
Thank you.
Why is everybody getting scared? Next to me, yeah?
Just don't keep it like too much women in one side, too much.
So we're going to make this very quick. And if the guests over here like the questions, then you must believe they are from me. And if you don't like the questions, then you must look at Anurag Yadav. He's the one. Anurag Yadav is the consulting editor.
Where is he at first?
Anurag, please put your hand up, just in case they don't like. Okay, let's start with, these are simple questions and pertaining to your industry, to your lives as a professional till now. And we'd like the answers immediately and in the first 2-3 sentences, if that is possible. So we'll start with Pony. How does a designer tackle a client who seems or claims to know better? Rather, how do you do it?
Be extremely diplomatic. Put him down in a very, very civilized, nice way by exposing his ignorance first.
Wow.
It always works well for me, but be extremely diplomatic. He'll actually appreciate it.
Okay, good.
Fantastic. What I like, she says put him down. So mark your words, it's never put her down, it's put him
Yes,
down.
yes.
Oh, you noticed that.
I absolutely agree. I'm a little biased. I am a little more sympathetic to women clients, and I actually find them more intelligent. I shouldn't be saying this, but it's the truth.
Well,
But women
we have
doesn't
another
think
question.
of themselves, so that's also
Sorry?
good. Women doesn't think of themselves,
Yes,
so
correct.
that question doesn't arise.
I'm going to Anand Tatu now. You have been quoted saying that the architect if the architect has designed the house well, it would need minimum intervention for the interiors. And I think this was quoted at Vasu Yogam or something like that, if I'm not mistaken. And what exactly do you mean by that?
So architect wants to do both the architecture as well as interiors. So you don't want anyone else to come into this.
That's the whole idea.
Okay.
Okay. Nitin, we would like to ask you, can there be socialism in design, or is design all about capital-intensive, glamorous projects?
Well, design is everything. It's this mix-up of socialism, maybe economics, maybe design per se. So you cannot really compartmentalize in that sense.
Okay, that was fast. Supraja, what can be a designer's nightmare and which was yours?
Nightmare. I guess no work is a nightmare.
Oh, interesting. So you've not got, your clients have not given you any nightmares as yet?
Not yet.
Oh, you're a lucky designer. Okay, Milind, coming back to you.
Yeah.
Do you believe form and aesthetics are less important than optimal space utilization needs?
I guess form and optimization of space goes hand in hand. Basically,
Where is Mr. Gopa Kumar?
it's complementing each other. It's not either or.
I want one more
One,
share. Sorry, Milind.
sorry, yeah. I think
One more share.
it complements. Basically, when you look at optimizing, you do definitely get into form as a function, and form follows function in that case.
Okay.
So I think it is together. It's hand in glove.
It's hand in glove.
Yeah.
I will now go to Salil.
Question for you, but you're missing.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Salil, what is the worst thing about being a member of a design jury and what is the best? And don't mention about Sarah WB Washroom Design Challenge. Any other design challenge where you've been a part of the jury?
Worst thing about being a member of a design jury? Well, the worst thing is honestly, the worst thing is, of course, if the stuff that's come to you to crit on is really poor. I mean, you don't know what to do with stuff that has been submitted of very poor standard. I mean, that's, see, because normally when, I think it would hold true for anybody who's in panels or juries or academics or whatever, is that you're normally there, to be able to get something back out of it. So it has to, in a way, engage you, perhaps ask you, question you yourself. Now, if those kind of things are not, I mean, there's nothing prodding you to think more than what you perhaps already know in your limited knowledge, then it's no fun. At the end of the day, when you go back home, you wonder what else you've been tickled by or prodded by. I mean, that's the whole point of coming for an engagement like this.
And what's the best?
So the best is if it does all happen.
Just the
there's
other
a
way.
whole celebration of the fact that you've been engaged. There are lots of different ideas that came up.
That's the best part.
Also, yeah, you learned a lot of things that you didn't, weren't aware of.
Correct.
And that would be, of course, the most,
So we'll go to S. Gopakumar. What is the one most important quality for an architect or designer without which all their talent will fade?
He has to understand the client and the needs very well before getting into design. Instead of putting his ideas strongly on top of the client.
So the brief has to be understood well.
Brief has to be understood very well.
So I would look at it as a part of client servicing.
Yeah.
Okay. Client relationship. Okay, again back to you, Anand Tatu. Name one project you have done which you can say illustrates your company's out-of-the-box approach the best. One you remember now?
We did this guest house cum bungalow for the Ambanis at Badrinath Himalayas.
So what was?
There was a lot of challenge because of the site conditions. There were lots of contours, the difference of about 35 feet in a width of 150 feet, and only 4 months in a year you can work over there.
Oh,
So
that
it took
was quite
such a long time, and every time you start the work, there was a new challenge because we would have done the soil investigation in 1 or 2 places, but this profile of the soil is different at every point. So it really raised a lot of challenges for us, and eventually we could do a good job. That is the...
Good. Supraja, what's the difference between clients in India and those abroad? I guess you do a lot of work in Dubai.
And a bit in the US. We're working with Indian clients, so I think.
But Indians are different on a different soil, right?
Well, I think in Dubai they're not very different.
No?
In US they're very different because they do a lot of work hands-on. So I think what they require out of the space is different. How they handle their daily life is different. How they raise their children is different. How they entertain is different. So yeah.
So when you have to work with them, do you find that you have to spend more time explaining to your clients in India than abroad because of whatever reasons?
So I was just saying today, the first time we did a project in US and the client sent us drawings, I corrected all the door openings because they opened all, according to me, all wrong. And I sent all drawings in electrical. And then the client said, no, all doors have to open. To me, according to me, they're still wrong.
Okay.
You open the door on your face even in a toilet.
Okay.
And the switchboards were all. So it was a bit of a learning initially.
Milind, coming back to you, which class or subject do you think you could have bunked totally in the Academy of Architecture at Mumbai, yet been as efficient in your subject as you are?
Well, one of the subjects where I definitely bunked, in the sense I never appreciated one lecture and I used to sit on the back bench and keep scribbling. And at the point in time, the professor asked me, Mr. Nulkar, get up. What are you doing? You're not concentrating on my lecture. So he said, just get out of my class. I said, fine. After that, I never attended his class. And
What
then
was the subject?
Structures.
Oh.
So not because I love structures, not because I don't like structures. It was because the way it was taught, I never liked it. And I went and sat in the library all the time. I never went to his class. And one day principal saw me in the library and he says, Nulkar, what are you doing here? So-and-so is conducting the class there and why are you out of your class? So I said, sir, he asked me not to come. So he said, is it? Then he took me along with him to the class and asked, did you ask him to get out of the class? He says, no.
Oh.
So I said, he did. So he says, that is for 3 classes back, that was for that class. And I said, it was a golden opportunity. You asked
For
me to
you
get
to
out. I
be out
said,
of
thank
it."
you very much.
Good one. Acha Kapani, coming back to you, I believe from 1989 to 2014 you spent time in premier architecture and design institutes from Cornell to Harvard to Malaysia and Italy. What basic difference, if any, did you find in design education there and back home in India?
Design, I was educated in the US primarily, and I find the difference is it's a little more hands-on. It's more practical. Classes are discussion oriented. Stuff that happens in India is more theoretical, not discussion oriented, very, very exam oriented. So, and the essential difference I found was in the US, and this is something I personally found it a little difficult, is that you had to be extremely original. You had to come up with your original hypothesis and justify it. So there's a lot of original thinking that is egged on in the West, which is not there in here. In here, it's okay if you copy a little bit, if you're theoretically correct. There's a lot of pressure on you to think out of the box. You have to come out with at least 50 different options for a design problem. So this is a little difference that I found between the East and West.
All right.
That answers the question.
Nitin, coming back to you, who do you think is responsible for public spaces, the government, the architects or designers contracted to improve them, or the public itself? Since you work a lot in the public area, and I know your interest is there.
Well, I would say that government, yes, first, and government policies.
Policies.
Because that is something which drives, And of course, people's participation always reinforces whatever government does it, rightly or wrongly. So, yes, I would put government as
And
top priority.
what role can the architectural fraternity play in this? Do you think they can
Well,
influence?
as an architect, we are taught certain ways of looking at things, and that helps a lot.
Okay,
Like
the perspective.
Like if a chartered accountant goes and he also, joins that kind of Zumba, that kind of movement, it will have some effect. But then when architect goes, then he articulates in a much better way, and that's where our role comes. But the major issue is, public at large, they are so much stressed that we don't really get support from masses.
True.
And that is what is really lacking in our public spaces. So, the way they commute, the way they live, what they eat, I'm talking of masses actually. So for them, whether to have good public space, no public space, all that is secondary.
True. All right. Coming back to Salil, what impressions of the career of an architect did you have as a child when you observed your father, a senior architect himself?
Well, when I was very younger, it was almost like a no. I didn't have an option because I used to be pulled to sites because I used to love to go to sites on the weekends. And so I would actually, as a young kid, be taken to sites, and I had great fun. I used to sit with the carpenters and make stuff or be very fascinated by those guys and that cow hide. They used to water the columns those days with this sort of a big long contraption, which was. So it was for me a sort of a little adventure park. And it's perhaps the most adventurous, best adventure parks that I went to as a kid. Later in life, when I actually decided that I want to do this to study architecture, I mean, my father was actually the one person who perhaps was dissuading me for the most amount of time.
Really?
Perhaps he wanted to make sure that I was sure I wanted to do this, and wasn't looking at it as the easiest thing to do. Because one knew about it and things. So it was, he was trying to nudge me into going and meeting friends of his who were lawyers and doctors and all kinds of things. Just, architecture was the last thing that he wanted to. So, so it was different. I mean, I perhaps had, I enjoyed those days as a kid. There was a time when once, when you do these little books and people were asked you for your profile picture. I actually had sent a picture of myself as a little kid on an architectural site. I was perhaps 10 years old. Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, so it was, you know, so that was
So
my.
you grew up with them.
I still remember some of those buildings which are still standing now, but I think in general that's the most wonderful thing about being an architect. What Nitin Bhai is saying is, you know, that pretty much everything you build is going to outlive your own life.
True.
You know, which most professions can't say. You know, for themselves. You don't know.
So you leave behind something to talk.
You do. I mean, I think in a way it sort of completely lifts you into another realm of, you know, in a way of responsibility of what you're doing.
True.
So you can't just be, you know, it's very frivolous sometimes when, you know, you see some of these images that are being projected, especially the last 2 years, of this new cities and this, it's bizarre. I mean, this purely without any thought and depth, you know, or just some sort of fantasies. It's bizarre. I mean, without any and I think there is a sort of a spiritual and a higher meaning to being an architect. It's not
Really?
so simple. I think so.
Because you have to envision what you're planning.
No, and it outlives you. I think that's the whole
Outlives
thing,
you,
you know.
yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
you
yeah.
can't just, I mean, the doctor can bury his mistake here. You can't, you know, it'll be there.
Great. So coming back to S. Gopakumar, so we have heard of workshops on monsoon architecture. Do you think a discussion on desert or dry regions architecture will also be a good idea?
It's a good idea because monsoon architecture we took up because we are in the monsoon belt.
Yeah.
We're done in Kerala. We are on the same monsoon belt. A lot of other forest countries and Africa and South America goes through this belt. The architecture is very common in that place because the rain content is very powerful. Like that you can also do on desert and all that because the needs are different. The humidity is different. Temperatures are different. People needs are different. So possibly we can do a fabulous thing there. It was a very successful program we had. It was highly appreciated by the society.
No, there are a lot of more questions, but since we are going a little late, I think we'll just finish it here. Thank you so much for being with us. And this was just a fun round just to get your individual views. Yeah, thank you. I have a lot of questions.
Why don't
but-
you put some questions to the audience? At least
Oh,
3
why don't you do that, Milind, on my behalf? Whom do you want to? You ask your questions. You're an architect yourself. Tell me fast, quickly, tick
Okay.
one.
Mr. Premnath there in the audience?
What is the dream
Premnath
project?
had a question.
Anybody in the audience? What in your opinion is a dream project? Please.
I think a project, which will break social barriers is a dream project.
Okay, great. Anybody else
Anybody
has an
else?
opinion?
Mr.
Mr.
Premnath is-
Premnath, I have a question for you. Congratulations on completing 50 years of practice last year, 67 to 2017. My question to you is, you had made a presentation of how you see the future of Mumbai. What did you think 50 years ago when you started your practice? And did you think...
Say again.
50 years ago, when you started your practice,
Yes.
you must have had some vision of the city, what it could be 50 years later. What was that, and do you think Bombay has surpassed that? Bombay has met that? What was the dreams as a young architect then?
When I started practice about 50 years back, I knew that India has a future. I had great opportunities to work outside in the US, but I found that India is a place where future is there. But soon realized that India is a slow country. One of my family member who runs the India Today magazine and India Today TV, he admitted that India is a slow-going bullock cart economy. And we admitted it that we are going to be slow. Let me tell you, we had a very good time as an architect, my time. So we had a luxury of doing designing, doing good architecture, good spaces over there. We didn't have pressure of today's kind, fast pass, this, that, whatnot. Turn of century has changed the pace of architecture, working of architecture. I have made more building last 10 years than I made building last 40 years. So I have to change with time. So my vision remained, yes, future is there. I still say future is there. So my vision had said, but we found, yes, we are slow, we are better, but we're doing well. One. Second thing is, it said, blessing in disguise that we're slow, because today, the rest of the world is built, except the African countries. India is yet to be built. We're building for tomorrow, building today technology, latest technology. We're producing good architecture in our country. That's what I see it. The best opportunity available to us.
Thank you.
Anand?
I have a question to Yatin Pandya and the other friends who are associated with academics. Now, since there are so many colleges opening, every year you have so many new colleges opening, offering architecture course. For example, in Gujarat, when we were studying in CEPT, there were only 2 colleges and 60 seats. Today there are 30 colleges in a span of 30 years. So, Yatin Bhai, what do you think, how should we change what we teach at the schools for making the students more industry ready and more responsible?
Yeah, I would say still remain with the basics. See, quality should not come in the way of quantity. So we need to have as many better, more teachers. So if you do produce more just for the sake of number, and second thing, I don't think we have to toe a line of the market and the industry. You know, it's always say doctors are trained to diagnose. So they have to know the trade and they have to treat the patient. So they have to be taught everything about body, anatomy, chemistry, you know, whatever. So likewise, if we prepare and values. So I don't think we have to lose any values. Nothing has changed just because we show, you know, glossy picture that tomorrow is going to be different. As human species, we are the same. We still have to be with another fellow human being and we still have to be with nature. So I think we go with the fundamentals with which we have existed, and if we learn from our past mistakes as well as the positive things and build on that, I think it will sustain. So I think it has to be going back to the fundamentals and maintaining that, and with that base, I think doesn't matter what comes, we are able and we are equipped to handle that.
Anything else?
I think the main thing is to
Yeah.
be able to train teachers. I mean, we don't have people to teach.
Train the trainers.
There are 4, you know, I mean.
Unfortunately, the
that's
industry
the biggest-
reject take up teaching. That is what is happening. Sorry to say
Yeah,
that.
yeah, so, I mean,
So, in that case, how to really control that? How to really train new
I
teachers?
think people need to start perhaps schools for teaching teachers to, you know, architectural teaching, I mean, education. It's not just about teaching young kids. And you can't have a person who's 23 years old, graduated, you know, 1 year, to go back to the same school and teach. It's, you know.
I have one question.
That's because I think the money and the respect both in the education field are not as it should be. Like in the West, what the professors get paid and what the respect there is, India has lost that sheen for, and it's our fault if we don't do that. If we don't correct it, it'll be too late. Right?
I have one question to the audience. You know, a lot of companies, international companies producing products for construction and interiors, come to India and dump their products in India because they mostly may not have any work abroad. They come and explain, say, this is made in Germany, this is made in Italy. They're nothing Indian. They come and do that to you. So what do you feel about it? Gujarat team, can you answer this? There's a Gujarat team sitting there.
What is the life of the product? How many of us are ready to understand the technicalities of the product? It is always a glossy magazine and a marketing person comes and tries to sell us that product. There is never a technical person. So whenever, isn't it our responsibility to always ask somebody who is coming to us architects with a new product that please send your technical team and give me answers to the technical questions? Because most of the time you will see half of them are marketing people who are coming to us.
That's I said they dump their products to India.
The technical person has to sit in the factory or office and work. The marketing person is doing job of selling. And the marketing person is trained with a certain amount of technical knowledge. If you want to go beyond it, then you have to go to the next level.
No.
We tested that product. How responsible are we about that? I mean, what is our knowledge about that product? Okay, only then we will give it, isn't it?
No, so doesn't matter where it comes from, ask what does it do for India? What does it do for that particular thing? And if it measures, and what are the alternatives against which? If there's a similar one from your next door, don't even think twice about it. Okay, but if it is better pill to treat you at the right kind of choices and all. So that's exactly what I say, that you have to filter out trades, options, whatever, and then make that judgment. That's what you are a professional in the interest of larger society as well as for the good of the client to decide what of choices. So it's an informed decision making, and that's why education prepares you for much more than pleasing the client. Okay.
Another point is that design for Indian context? Half of these products, as he said, are rejects. And because it is a reject, it is being dumped on us. And then, if it is dumped there, why was it dumped there? And
So I-
therefore, is it designed for our conditions?
So I think we are really responsible for that. I think East, we are so enamored by the West that everything which is they're using, it doesn't even work for us. You know, I was in the US for a few weeks now, and at a friend's house I was staying, the WC had the seat warmer and everything. Until now, whenever I would see one of these in wash basin bathroom concept, and I used to wonder who the hell will buy it. But I was using them in the US at whatever -degree temperature there, it completely made sense. And then I said, hey, look, so it's definitely not valid in my city, where south of India it doesn't go beyond 16. It may be valid in the north of India. So many products are being sold, which context is not there. I realized I use the hoodie of my shirt jacket every single day because I was at a site at -17 degrees, and I casually walked around the site, and within 10 minutes I realized I won't be able to survive in the site. So context, and we are blindly doing things. I always say, as a country, if we're proud of who we are, we don't need to look at the West.
I agree. I really agree. That's great. So I guess we'll wind up this. Anything else? Yeah? Because you're like 1.5 hours late. But thank you so much for being such a wonderful audience.